Defying the concept of night and day once again. Good night, everybody. I'm going to bed. Good night, chat. I'm on the league start schedule, boys. I'm on the league start schedule. Yep. You like the flask though? People seem to like the flask. I'm surprised so many people like the flask. Grima already made a video? No shot. Really? That's funny. That's so funny. For the record, this is not my original idea for the flask. Like people were calling me out saying he lied because he said that they declined all my ideas and stuff. They did. This was denied twice. They said no to it twice. But eventually, sparing you the details, they did decide to make it. They did decide to make it. So I'm happy. I'm happy. So what's the downside? Downside? There's no downside. It's from one of the hardest, I'd say this is from the hardest boss in the entire game. There's no downside. Originally it was supposed to be like a granite, an amethyst, a topaz, a ruby, or a sapphire. And so they decided against that because they don't want to have like 5 different versions of one unique. Yeah, they were like, this is not good enough, blah, 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 blah. They actually don't think it's good enough, which was interesting. I personally don't think it's gonna be OP, but I wanted it to at least be fun. So, does it scale with Pathfinder? Yeah. So the explode chance does indeed scale. But yeah, look, I mean, look. I'm really, I couldn't be happier about people's reception. Yeah, people seem like super happy, dude. Should we watch Grima's video? I can't believe he made a freaking video. Look at his smile. He looks so happy.
Yo, what is up guys, Karim here, and today's video we're going to be talking about the newly revealed flask RESN, which was designed by Steelmage and drops from Uber Cirrus.
I'm very curious to hear what he has to say about it. My design of this flask ended up being something that I thought would be fun. I didn't design it to be OP. Well, I didn't even really design it. GGG basically took over. And I was happy for them to do that, just to see the unique being made. So, I don't know if you guys have spotted it yet, but this is the dye beam on a flask. So, that's why it's a random element. So, Cirrus's dye beam, it has a fizz, fire, cold, and lightning version. That's why the beam, like, that's why the dye beam sort of flashes, because it's rolling like lightning, fizz, fire, cold, etc. This is based upon that.
Dye.
That's why it's like a random element. Do you want me to tell you the really cool thing about this? And this is why I said this is gonna be fun no matter what. Even if this is weak, although people seem to think it's OP, I'll let Grimo explain. I didn't design this to be OP, but it should actually explode visually based on the damage type it chooses. I think. I'm gonna have to like double check because I haven't actually seen this in action. I've only been told. But it should actually have a fire, cold, and lightning. So you should see a flash of colors. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen what it looks like, but it should look really cool, which is why I said it's gonna be fun.
Longer is better.
It's got increased charge recovery for whatever reason, but the main.
Yeah, that mod on here, by the way, totally doesn't. So we were just debating about what the last mod should be. But like I said, I told GGG to just do whatever they want with it.
The only places that you can get any sort of true explode is on synthesized implicit weapons, which are so hard to craft they're generally relegated to the mirror tier category, and influenced chests, which have a chance to explode as well. Now, the influenced chests are a little bit more accessible, but they're notoriously hard to craft, and they also like kind of remove your ability to go for an Eldritch implicit chest, which are very powerful and way easier to craft. Now, this one flask has a modifier on it which is basically equal to either an explodey weapon, which we just talked about, or an explodey chest, and it's just a flask. And in addition to that, you can scale this flask with flask effect quite easily. In fact, there's tons of nodes on the tree which can easily take this thing up to 40% chance to explode and beyond.
Do you think it would even be worth enkindling flasking it, just because it has so much charge recovery and uptime? Because an 8.5 flask, so the bismuth flask was picked only because of the duration and the uptime. It's the only reason it was picked.
Congrats on another banger item.
It has nearly 11 seconds of base duration. You wanna know how this flask existed? Like how this flask got made? So they denied, my first idea was the flask. I gave them a bunch more ideas. Then I asked them for the flask again after they denied those ideas. They denied the flask idea. Then we ended up trying to make another item. it was a recovery item, it was going to be really OP, but then they wanted to change the base last minute, which ruined it, because they wanted to make it an amulet.
My collection
and then they were
grows.
like, well, we can't not make
Already
amulets just because of Ashes and, you know, Omni. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to make an amulet. Like I get what you're saying, but like, if it's an amulet, it's going to be bad. And they're like, yeah, but we can't just not make amulets because of that. And I was like, well, I don't want it then. And I baby reached. And then I was like, and then the deadline was approaching. We had like 2 weeks to make the unique, and I was like, I give up. Just make something. And then they were like, And then they got back to me and they're like, how about that flask? And then we had the flask. It was definitely a process to get this into the game. I'm very happy with the outcome. And I'm way happier that you guys like it so much. When I said they declined the idea, I wasn't joking. Because they declined it twice. This was not... And I didn't even ask them to make it in the end. They decided to sort of be like, we'll go back to the flask. It's a very cool item that I'll never get. Papilla, yeah, it's gonna be hard to get. It is balanced by the boss that it's on, obviously, so. Steelmage trained for years of streaming. I don't think they fully understand why Explodey is fun though. Because it's clear, and it's inaccessible in the current meta. It's inaccessible in the current meta because it's too expensive on a weapon, and uniques, they don't have Eldritch Implicits, and they're not very good defensively. Talking Storm's Gift, Impulses, that kind of thing. And the Crusader Explicit is hard to get, and doesn't have the implicits, right? Like, in the current meta, there's no source of Explodey outside of things like Glad, Profane Bloom, basically, and Synth Implicits.
I would be surprised if you're hovering anywhere between, you know, the 50-ish plus point of explode chance. Now, I'd say that you're probably going to be more around the 40% chance on every mapper that you're going to be using this with, but you know, I think that's probably you would kind of go with that.
Oh yeah, did I tell you the original idea, by the way? So if you don't know, the original idea, and part of the reason they declined it, was supposed to be a ruby, topaz, sapphire, granite, and an amethyst. And the reason I wanted it to be these base types is because it fits really nicely into the Mage Blood meta, and also provides more utility than obviously a bismuth. Because if it was, let's say it was a ruby, now the idea was if it was a ruby, it would be fire explodey, topaz light explodey, and so on and so forth. You get the idea, right? And so the reason I like these kind of uniques is when they drop, you have that like, oh my god, which flask did I get? I got the topaz, and the topaz, let's say the topaz is shit because of impulses. It's like, okay, yeah, it's still good. Maybe it's not like as nice as, let's say, maybe the ruby ends up being insanely OP, or the sapphire, because there's not really good sources of cold explosion yet, right? And so that was kind of the idea. But they don't like the idea of dropping 5 different uniques for one unique, you know, the variable uniques anymore. Things like Watcher's Eyes, because there's so many of them, especially on Cirrus, there's so many. The trade-off, and I think I appreciate it now, more in hindsight, is this is one of the only unique flasks in the game that actually has insanely high uptime. Does this have the highest uptime out of any flask? Because it's a bismuth with charge recovery. Like, it actually has insanely high uptime for a unique flask. I have to admit, I don't like bismuth as a base for hardcore, but for softcore, obviously, you can literally use this to cap your res. So, and to be fair, I mean, it's an uber serious unique. It's going to be more popular in softcore no matter what.